Welcome back everyone. We're going to be doing another comparison today between the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra and the Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus. Now obviously I should have done these comparisons as soon as the S20 and S20 Plus and S20 Ultra came out, but I was doing so many other comparisons and I just now got the S20 Ultra, and what's really cool about both of these phones is that there are a lot of similarities between them, and a really interesting thing is the S20 Plus is probably more than enough for a lot of people. You know, if you need a phone, the S20 Plus is probably one of the most important phones this year and one of the best phones in my opinion. But it was overshadowed by the S20 Ultra, making the S20 Plus kind of like a middle child, kind of like what the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus were when the iPhone 10 were released. So the S20 Plus is a great phone and is still a flagship, even though the S20 Ultra is a little bit bigger and a little bit better than the S20 Plus. And I feel like the Plus one is kind of underrated in a lot of ways, which I'll talk about probably in a separate video. But a really interesting thing to point out about the price tag is the S20 Ultra is a little bit more expensive in the new market. You know, if you're going to Best Buy or AT&T or wherever, the S20 Ultra is going to cost you more money. But the S20 Plus is a little bit cheaper, but in the used market, it's depreciated quite a bit. You can pick up an S20 Plus for cheaper than a brand new Samsung Galaxy S20. So you can pick up an S20 Plus right now on Amazon for around $850. And if you're watching this a month later or 2 months later or whatever, that price will probably end up getting cheaper and cheaper. So I'll go ahead and find the cheapest ones of both of these phones that I find on Amazon and link them down in the description below. Again, those prices over time will get cheaper and cheaper. So if you wait a month or 2 months or 3 months, they're probably going to get cheaper and cheaper. So looking on the fronts of both phones, starting off with the S20 Plus, we have a 6.7-inch dynamic AMOLED display. It is a 1440p panel, and like I've stated before, even with the Galaxy S20, it is one of the best panels out there right now. It is such a good panel. Anytime you do anything with the screen, it's just extremely good. And going from a Galaxy S20 Plus to an S20 Ultra, the screen-wise, you're not going to see that big of a difference. There's a bigger screen on the S20 Ultra, but the screen on the S20 Plus is still extremely good. Not only do you have that whole punch display in the center with a little bit of bezel on the top and bottom, but you have that 120Hz refresh rate on that panel as well. And it's an OLED display with that type of capability, which is extremely cool. That's one of my favorite things ever about the whole entire S20 lineup. The cheapest S20 has it, and the most expensive Ultra has it as well. So in my opinion, the S20 Plus is a really good balance between, price tag, even though it's still expensive, and the screen size for sure. Whereas on the S20 Ultra, we have a 6.9-inch dynamic AMOLED display. This one is also 1440p, but it also has that 120Hz refresh rate as well, which is really cool. Now, holding both in the hand, I don't think you're necessarily going to feel like one is way better or way bigger or whatever more than the other one. I feel like they both have really good advantages when it comes down to it. Obviously, they're both ginormous phones, so if you like a smaller phone, the S20 is the way to go. And between the S20 Plus and S20 Ultra, going from an S20 to an S20 Plus is a bigger difference than going from an S20 Plus to an S20 Ultra in my opinion. So size-wise and everything, they're both around the same size. It's not like you're going to feel like one is way bigger than the other one. The only difference that I kind of, noticed on the S20 Ultra, which I'll get into in a second, is the camera. But on the bottom of both of these, they have USB Type-C ports on the back. Now on the back, glass backs, really nice feeling phones. I kind of wish they opted for that matte texture, but they're both in the same ballpark, so it doesn't matter. Now with the camera that I was talking about earlier, you have a quadruple camera setup on both, but they're both kind of positioned in a different space. And the strange thing is that the S20 Ultra, in my opinion, isn't like crazily top heavy, but that camera module seems to be a little bit more top heavy than the camera module on the S20 Plus. So it's not a big deal. It's not going to, create any drama or anything, but it's a little bit of a noticeable thing. So nobody has really talked about it that much, but that's one thing that I wanted to hit out right now. But in terms of the outside, they both have IP certification as well. IP68 dust and water resistant, so the same type of certification on both. Both have micro SD card slots as well, which is really cool. And in terms of the outside, that really pretty much covers it. They both have memory cards as well, so that's a really cool thing. So that really pretty much covers it up in terms of the outside. Now hitting on the software, they're both going to be getting the same exact software versions, which is really cool. They're both starting off with Android 10 on One UI 2. They're going to be getting Android 11 and then Android 12, and it's probably going to end up ending on Android 12, which is so dumb. Like I stated before, they can easily get more versions of Android. The hardware is there. Samsung just needs to go and start pushing more updates out. The chances of that happening are very, very slim, so I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens. But even One UI 2 isn't really that bad. I wish it could have been some more stock, somewhat more stock, I think is what I want to say, but at the end of the day, one is not necessarily going to be outlasting the other one, which in a way is a good thing, but also is kind of a weird thing as well. So in terms of the software, that really pretty much covers it up too. Now hitting on the performance, the Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus has a Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 chipset, an octa-core CPU, and Adreno 650 GPU, and there's only one model of the S20 Plus with 8 gigs of RAM, where the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra has the Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 chipset, an octa-core CPU, an Adreno 650 GPU, and again, only one model of the S20 Ultra with 12 gigs of RAM. Now, in terms of performance, this is probably going to take a minute, so I'll start off with the S20 Plus. It's an extremely fast phone. Really, anything you do with it, it's going to be able to handle it. If you're, managing small things, if you're just opening up Snapchat, Instagram, keeping those in the background, those things are going to be perfectly fine. If you're going to step up to a level, go to mid-tier gaming, if you're going to go and do like Temple Run and like stack and multitask between them while having Snapchat in the background stuff, it's going to be able to handle that just fine. And even games like Real Racing 3 and everything, it handles those things just perfectly fine as well. So the S20 Plus, extremely good performing phone. It's still probably one of the fastest phones, if not probably at least the fastest Android phone in the market right now. And I think for sure it's an extremely good performing phone. And the S20 Ultra just adds a little bit more RAM to that. It's just a little bit faster. It's a little bit smoother, and it's able to keep more apps in the background more often. So that's really the biggest difference you're going to see between these, is that you do have more RAM on the S20 Ultra. So what that means is, you're able to keep more apps. So like I stated earlier, you can keep all your Instagram, Snapchats, Temple Run, Stack, Real Racing 3, Nova, whatever you're going to play with it. And it's going to be able to keep those, the same exact apps that the S20 Plus has in the background. You're going to keep those on the S20 Ultra, and then some. You're going to keep way more apps, so you have about 50% more RAM, which is extremely cool. So you could theoretically keep 50% more apps in the background. And other than that, I'll tell you right now, for the time being, both these phones are more than enough for a ton of people. You're going to be getting a ton of performance and a ton of things out of these. But what I will say though is that in the future, and maybe even in the near future, apps are going to be getting more and more demanding. They're going to need more resources in order to run properly. So that's one big thing. It's always good to have the most amount of RAM that you can get in a certain time. And with 12 gigs of RAM, that's a ton in a phone, and you're going to be set for basically until this phone gets, stops getting supported with software. So in terms of the performance, the S20 Plus is still a great performing phone, but the S20 Ultra obviously is the better one when it comes down to it. So that pretty much covers it up in terms of the performance. Now hitting on the cameras, I'll go ahead and tell you the difference in the megapixels and all that. The S20 Plus has a 12 megapixel wide angle lens, a 64 megapixel telephoto lens, a 12 megapixel ultra wide sensor, and a 0.3 megapixel depth sensor, where the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra has a 108 megapixel wide angle lens, a 48 megapixel periscope telephoto lens, a 12 megapixel ultra wide sensor, and a 0.3 megapixel depth sensor. Now you're able to do 8K videos on both of these phones, which is extremely cool. That's a humongous advantage that you have on both, and that's something that not a lot of phones or even a lot of devices and cameras have that capability of doing. So that's a really cool thing that both these phones have. Now in terms of quality and day by day, you're really not going to notice that big of a difference. If I'm being honest, like completely honest, you're not going to notice that big of a difference. Really, the main difference may lie in the fact that you have 10 times hybrid zoom on the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra, while you only have 3 times hybrid zoom on the S20 Plus, which means that you can zoom in a little bit, actually a lot more on the S20 Ultra than you can on the S20 Plus. Is it a big difference? Is it this? Probably not, if I'm being honest. You do have a higher megapixel count for that wide angle lens, which is really cool, which kind of makes sense because if you're zooming in a lot, you need to preserve a lot more information and a lot more image quality. But I'll tell you, man, if you need a good camera or even amazing camera, the S20 Pluses will get the job done for you. For the average person, even if you're above average, that camera quality is still extremely good for a ton of people. The S20 Ultra honestly is great if you just want to stunt on people and just be like, oh, look how this is crazy I can zoom. Like, there's no practical reason to have that much zoom on a phone, at least, especially at the quality that it is. Based on all the photos I've taken on it and based off the photos I've seen other people take on it too, like, I'll give the edge to the S20 Ultra, but the S20 Plus is still a great camera. Now ending it off with the battery life, the S20 Plus has a 4500 mAh battery, the S20 Ultra has a 5000 mAh battery, and again here, even though the S20 Ultra has a bigger screen, you're still going to get better battery life on the S20 Ultra just because of that noticeably bigger battery size. So they both have wireless charging, they both have reverse wireless charging, which is really cool. But between both, I'd probably give the edge to the Galaxy S20 Ultra for sure. So to kind of sum up the video and to answer the question, which phone should you pick up? like I stated before, better bang for value and better bang for dollar value, whatever, S20 Plus is the better way to go in my opinion. You know, you're getting almost exactly the same phone as the S20 Ultra, just substantially cheaper, a little bit smaller, and maybe the camera quality isn't as great and you're losing a little bit of RAM, but honestly, like I said, it's still a tremendous phone for a ton of people out there. With the S20 Ultra, extremely good, probably one of the best phones in the market right now, but it is noticeably more expensive for the long run. So, in my opinion, they're both great phones. You can't really go wrong with either one, but I would probably recommend the S20 Plus for probably a lot of people watching this. So, like I said, if you want to pick them up, links are down below. That's really pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions or anything, let me know in the comment section as well. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count. So it means so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel. All those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate if you guys would check it out. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.